I think what's complicated about Notion is not just that it has so many features, but the very fact that other tools exist all around. There are other wikis and Trello boards and note takers, and it's and all which can be used together as standalone products, as all-in-one products, which makes it very hard for us to just answer a very basic question, which is Notion actually good for us, or are we just misunderstanding it? And is it just good for other people who are very productivity guru like with their lives? So that's what we want to answer. Beyond the features, what are the two essential ideas of Notion that makes it different from everything else? What did they introduce? And to preface this, um, or prefaces, I mispronounced it. Uh, Even the founder of Notion himself said
I love
that the product is misleading, and this was his quote.
the way you phrased it. You kind of have to hide your vision behind something that people understand and know how to use. And
Yeah. We call the sugar called the broccoli. People don't want to eat the broccoli, but people like sugar, so give them the sugar.
They sugar coated broccoli. So what exactly is the sugar and what is the broccoli? And the sugar is the fact that people like keeping their spaces tidy. Or even if we dread tidying our rooms, we at least can understand how to tidy our rooms or tidy our notes. So the broccoli is tidying notes. Broccoli tidying notes. But the sugar is that really, if you look into the history of here I wrote it here. Really, the history was uh, their hidden goal was to make it easier for people to code, because Ivan was really influenced by Alan Kay, um, who was the inventor of copy and paste, but also behind many influential ideas about computing. And essentially, and this was a time where relational databases and graphical user interfaces and all these uh, innovations that we've taken for granted today were being thought of and contemplated with. Um, and so they made a developer tool. Nobody liked it. They fired everyone. Had no money. And okay, so but what were they trying to solve? They were trying to make it so that people can code up their own apps so they can organize their information better. And the real insight in their first version, so this is the first idea of Notion, is the fact that you can build an app by editing a document. Build, build, application. Why does it not work? It's so strange, man. What the hell? Build, what the hell, man? Why does it not work? So stupid. Okay, build application uh, by editing notes. So how does it work? Well, you see, in OneNote, I think, and this is true with many, uh, with OneNote, for example, you can say, okay, there's structure, and you can customize the structure because you can create your own notebooks, which has its own sections and pages, and you can even reorder the pages. The problem is because each page is strictly content, so I cannot put a reference to another page here. What that means is when you navigate content, which you will is a fundamental problem of the knowledge-based economy, we only really have access over this very small domain, this left panel. I mean, maybe we could do this. We're severely limited by the hierarchy, by the user interface itself, and that's a problem. Whereas contrasting the big step that Notion took was when you create a subpage. So let me get rid of this. When I create a subpage, and I drag it down here, so it's a subpage, it not only appears on the left side, it appears on the right. What that means is because it can appear within the document itself, and the document itself is editable. We're effectively building an user interface for ourselves. We can rearrange it in any way we like. Put it here if we want. We can have 2 rows, so we'll have another page. And so this is a static website, equivalent to a static website showing images, pages in layouts we want. And this was done by editing a document. So the sugar, we're just editing documents. This is the first idea. The second idea, and really what I think is what the idea that actually is the most, I think this is the most impactful idea of Notion, is that of the user-friendly database. And this is how Simon Last, one of the
So before
co-founders,
that-
puts it.
That Notion was only like the hierarchical documents basically, and it's just such a key like primitive. Like you need a database when you need to track more than 10 things, and
Before that, it was just a hierarchical database, hierarchical pages. And then they introduced Notion 2.0 in 2018, which, and the quote was, you need databases. What is it? You need databases when you need to track more than 10 things, which is recipes, it's movies we watched, it's our accounts and passwords that we have to track, it's our trips for some, it's our files. We have more than 10, and we will sort them by size, by kind. It's our albums, it's our photos. It's essentially the generic structure with which we want to organize almost well, a lot of things in our lives. And so how does it work? Well, I think at a basic level, so at an abstract level, if we think of, imagine these are like 4 things we're tracking. And normally when the quantity of things we track increase, as it increases, we find it necessary to have some level of hierarchy and organization. And so traditionally we use folders to do it. But another way to do it is with spreadsheets. Though we lose the ability for folders, we gain the ability to have graphs, etc. Now, the Notion database, forget about the name of it. You can think of it like a spreadsheet. So imagine there's a spreadsheet where you just put down tomato soup, salad, hamburgers, and it's just a spreadsheet for all intents and purposes. But you also put tags as the properties on other columns. So now this is very much no different from a spreadsheet, except with the power of the UI, you could have a dedicated view for sorting, a dedicated view for filtering. Okay, I'll show you with a real example. So we're gonna build a recipe tracker. I'm gonna get rid of this. Okay, so a recipe tracker, which the only thing I've prepared is this automations thing, which every time I add a new spreadsheet entry, so it will automatically add the date as an attribute without me having to do anything. And this is a bit counterintuitive, but let's proceed for now. And now, what I can do here is, by giving this miso soup a healthy tag. Now, if I want to say, I just want to see healthy tags, which you could also think of healthy as a folder. Now, what is a folder? Well, you create a view, and okay, no, I'll show you. I already created it here. This is healthy, and this is really taking the same spreadsheet of data, but filtering it such that only recipes with the tag healthy will be shown. And this is persistent, so I don't really have to keep redoing this filter every time. I can also do a most recent, which is really using sort, which sorts the dates in descending order. And the way I did it was essentially by creating a new view or a new perspective, different ways of seeing the same data, of rearranging data, showing the same layout. And let's do table. And this is the same because we're not doing any different filters. And we can do sort by date, this time ascending, and this will be ascending. And it's not very useful, so we'll just get rid of it. And so normally we want the minimum number of very useful views. And the gallery is really, how do we do that? Well, a gallery is just a different way to lay out the same piece of information, but also showing the images, because here there are images, here there are images. And so you already see how, yes, there's overhead with maintenance. We have to put tags, though with folders, we'll have to put folders as well. But it's much more flexible. They don't interfere. Each view doesn't really interfere with each other unless you actually modify the underlying data. So, and this is, and when you combine it, so now if you think about it, this is a UI. Imagine that people in the past ordered, had a software engineering team and millions of dollars of budget to build out a recipe app that updates in real time, is collaborative, and has a nice UI and is sorted, and you can change it. This is effectively a web app builder. And in the words of Ivan, and this was in a Verge interview, it's essentially what an engineer does every day: wire together a relational database with views on top of it. So, and I can attest to it, as a web developer, basically we manage database queries, we manage the data, and we spend a lot of time on the UI to think, how do you display the UI properly in a way that makes sense and is flexible and versatile. That's what they wanted to do. Notion wanted to democratize coding, and they did that with the deception of where documents that look nice, and everybody can find that approachable. So to conclude, I want to show you what practical uses it has. And I think one of my favorite databases is the games database, where I see the playtime, where Dota 2 is by far the most played game. But because of the fact that I can score the games, I can find more games that I like, that I think are underrated, and look at the studios behind these apps, these games. Same with movies, which I did in a watching OS, like this. So there's YouTube. Although it doesn't work very well with YouTube. I think I'm overdoing it. But with movies, very, very useful. I really like Wes Anderson, and also the Reading OS, which now I'm trying to read some English literature. But recently I've been into the political books, and the Japanese children's books, and it really gives me control over, okay, I'm not mindlessly thinking, okay, I'm just going to read whatever is recommended to me. I actually have some way of revisiting what I like, and looking for patterns for things. And then lastly, the password builder, the account builder, which I cannot show you because it's passwords, but it's also the reason it's necessary is because Apple passwords or Google Chrome passwords are very convenient and require nothing to set up, but they don't cover all cases. And because they don't cover all cases, there'll be times where you go to a reception and they're not really related to with a desktop app or an iPhone app, where you have to keep track of the password, and now you have 3 places to track passwords instead of one centralized place. So a database is good for that too. So all in all, I think those are the big contributions. The Notion is is really uh, a programming tool that disguises itself as just we use drag and drop for notes. Disguised as document drag and drop, as a document editor. We use notes a lot when we really want is just a simple database. And I think the idea of a user-friendly database will be extremely relevant in the future, even now. And part of the reason isn't used now is just because it's not explained very well. And I hope hopefully I've done something to make it more understandable. And the reason I'm not paid by Notion, the reason I'm so interested in Notion was because I was working on an app to with a lot of Blackboard videos, trying to record a lot of Blackboard videos, and I found it a nightmare to organize these explanations I made in the past. So I implemented a folder structure, and now I'm regretting it because now all these things are in the bottom and I can't really have it on top. There's so much rigidity. I have to decide if this iOS regressions video would oh, it's actually empty, but would go into one folder, or maybe it fits into multiple folders. It could be labeled as a bug or as knowledge. It can have multiple folders. Folders force us to choose, and I also work on a life calendar where it's basically trying to put everything, all my responsibilities, onto one place that I can see, so I can manage them together in a simple way. And in order to know if I'm wasting my time making this app, I had to answer the question whether Notion would destroy all productivity apps. If the right thing is setting up a database for everything, then why am I working on this? And so that's why I went into so much research about Notion. I'm not paid, and now that makes it sound like I'm paid. But please pay me if you're someone from Notion, if you think this video is helpful. But there will be times we don't use databases for everything. For example, in the context of a life calendar, which is actions.life. It's just coming out of beta now. There's actually benefits to having one default way of seeing everything hierarchically, as subtasks and tasks, and being able to create a task, drag it, and then archive it. This makes it so that it's harder to lose things. I know everything can be found here and there's no hidden corners I need to check. Everything is centralized. And this helps with focus, where it's not really about having a high quantity of things to do, but really being focused and prioritized and executing properly and actually doing things rather than just tracking a lot of things. So this will be one of the examples where a database and all this infinite flexibility is not actually the right thing to do. So yeah, so that's a disclaimer. Thanks for watching the video.